Hey everybody, so I wanted to come to you guys this morning and talk about the Real Housewives of Atlanta reunion. As you know, because we're in lockdown, they had to do things a little differently, right? Their season had wrapped up and they wanted to do things a little differently. So they had their first ever virtual reunion, which I actually think went off really well. That's something that they will have to, with all this stuff going on, people are going to have to rethink how they do things. But I'm glad that they did this. This was kind of cool. Everybody in their own spaces, right? And I also felt like the women all had like batteries in their backs because you in the room by yourself or you just kind of by yourself, you pop off. You tend to pop off just a little bit more, right? Because ain't nobody within arm length of you, ain't nobody sitting on the couch with you. So I just think that the women were turned up a bit more last night, and I really did like the reunion setup. Everybody looked decent. I mean, Nene, yeah. I like the fact that Andy put people on blast. It's like, I saw some people walking around with masks. Who got their makeup done and hair and all this other stuff? And they had to admit that they did, in fact, some of them brought some folks in. Okay. Now, when it comes to people who stood out last night or this part of the reunion, part one, I will have to say Miss Porsha. Porsha. She was reading for filth last night. I feel like there was a battery in her back. It was a battery in everybody's back, except for Cynthia. Cynthia just seemed like if everybody was turned up, Cynthia was turned all the way down. Maybe she's just over it. Okay. But I just thought that Porsha brought it last night. She absolutely brought it with the reads. She definitely had it out for Eva. And that shit was funny as hell. It just was. It was. So, I want to start talking about first things first. Andy asked everybody how everything was going. And he asked about, of course, since the show has stopped filming, time has passed, right? Time has passed. So he just kind of caught up with all of the women and what was going on with all of the women. And when he got to Kenya, he asked her about her current status or her current, relationship, how things were with Mark. And Kenya basically said that her and Mark are in a good place. They're in a better place, that they are going through counseling through Zoom. He's currently in New York feeding the healthcare workers. As you know, he has a restaurant in New York. They were always having like this kind of long distance thing going on. But I found it kind of interesting when she answered this, right? Because she really kind of, Mark acted like an asshole. It's true. All right. And even I took up for him and I still kind of stand by that because some of the shit that she was doing, I just didn't agree with. And he just wasn't a pushover. He still acted like a jerk to his wife, nonetheless. But I found it interesting that when Andy asked her, she's like, yeah, we're working on it. We're doing Zoom therapy. He's in New York feeding everybody. And I'm just thinking to myself, of all the times to probably be together because ain't shit open, ain't shit going down, it should be right now. I feel like this would be a time where he should be down in Atlanta with his wife trying to work it out. Honestly, because it's like New York probably going to open later than everybody else. So ain't shit for him to do. Really, it really ain't. He can't be feeding healthcare workers that much. So that was a little interesting of an answer. But, Kenya's always on her PR mode. I also thought it was interesting that, they show flashbacks of how Kenya said that women were texting him and saying, I want that sex again, and all this other stuff. And she says, things are in a better place. He wants to get back to, be with us again. He's done a complete 360. And I said, I scratched my head. I saw people was thinking the same thing. I'm like, 360? If he did a 360, that means that he ain't changed. He went back to the same person he was, which is what you said, that shortly after you got married, he had women texting him. Now, see, she contradicted herself because I recall the way it played out on TV when her and Mark supposedly broke up and she's sitting there crying to Cynthia and Kandi. She made it seem like women were texting him. He was sexting them back. I mean, it was like he was cheating. She made it seem like he was cheating. Last night, she kind of tried to walk it back. Like, no, they were just trying to text him. They were trying to reach out to him. She tried to clean it up, but I caught that. I caught that. I caught it, and I'm just like, that just sounds interesting to me, how she tried to clean it up. That's why you got to be mindful when you in a you on mad day, what comes out of your mouth, because now she's trying to clean up this thing between her and Mark, but she said it out of her mouth. She said that the way I took it on, when she was talking to, after the charity event, she was talking to Cynthia and Kandi, and she made it seem like, no, all this time he been cheating. All this time he been texting, sexting, whatever and stuff. Now last night, she kind of pulls it back. Like, no, it was a woman that he was messing with before we got together, and she still wanted that old thing back. That's not how you said that, Kenya. That's not how you put it. But anyway, let me move on. So, of course, Nene and Kenya get into it. Nene did say some below the belt things, I believe. I personally feel. Everybody was talking about Kenya's marriage, but Nene said something along the lines of, she didn't even use her own eggs for Brooklyn. And it was just a bridge too far. But, here's the thing about reading. Here's the thing, that when you in the trenches, you in the mud with somebody and you going at them, a lot of stuff, people just don't care what they say, right? I think kids should be off limits, but people just, if you go in there with somebody, you go there. And so last night, I thought it kind of funny when, Nene was, I guess she called, I don't know if it was shade, I don't know if it was, but she's like, oh, Brooklyn looks like Mark. And then Kenya replied, well, your sons look like you. And I cackled. I absolutely cackled with that, because you know what? I don't like Kenya, but when I tell you, Kenya do be coming with the reads. I don't know if they had the reads on the cue cards over there on the side, because remember, they in their own cribs. So I feel like the reads were ready. They were set. They were already loaded in the gun, and they was ready to be fired last night. I do believe that these women were definitely ready with their reads. They had already rehearsed them in their heads. They was ready. Nobody better than Porsha right here. But the reads were indeed ready. So, of course, like I said, Kenya and Nene did the thing that they did. But when Porsha and Eva got into it, and Porsha said that her titties is social distancing, I swear I couldn't unsee it at that point. I couldn't unsee Eva's titties going this way and that way. Now, to be fair to Eva just had a baby not too long ago, and she probably breastfeeding. And if you ever nursed, you know how your titties can get. But I couldn't unsee it once. I couldn't unsee it once Porsha said it. That shit was hilarious. And I am so glad that Porsha came at Eva, because Eva just seems to be the person. And I don't like Eva on this show. I absolutely don't like her on this show. Eva seems to be the person who really does think that her shit don't stink. And she does say a lot of shady stuff. And then they will play it back for her. She'd be like, I didn't say that. And they will play her shit back for her. She do say a lot of offhanded shit. She absolutely do. And I'm glad that, that Porsha got her. Now, Nene, I have a love-hate relationship with Nene. And I've said that before in previous videos. But last night I wasn't feeling Nene in the way she was acting. Nene is the type of person that she won't stand in her shit. Like, she'll pretend to stand in it. Like, yeah, I said it. I'm not taking it back. But when people start firing back at her and telling her what she said and how she made them feel and all this other stuff, she has a tendency to shut down. She don't want to hear it. It's like, no, you dished it out. So you need to be able to take it. And so Nene found herself in those kind of situations. On last night's reunion about the Wendy Williams stuff and her saying that her and Wendy are neutral, which I don't even understand what that means. I mean, Kandi was kind of telling her right. Kandi was telling her, like, if it was any one of us who did what Wendy did, basically distancing herself from, like, basically, I don't know you, you're beneath me. Nene would have lost her shit. She would have lost her mind on those women. But because it was Wendy, she didn't do all of that. And she said, we're in a neutral place. What does that even mean? What does neutral place even mean? I don't even know what that means. It sounds to me, if you say neutral place, that means y'all ain't cool, but y'all ain't enemies. Y'all just, it's just nothing. But I just thought that was kind of interesting. And I do like the fact that Kenya, like, again, I tell you, I don't like Kenya, but her reads be lethal sometimes. She said that, you know, she felt like she was looking at white chicks. And Nene didn't look good to me last night. Nene doesn't always get it right. Nene's a hit or miss for me. Sometimes she looks nice. And then sometimes I just don't know. She just don't always get it right. I did not like her look last night. I just didn't. And I'll be rooting for Nene. I'll be trying to root for Nene because she an OG. I try to like her, but I just don't like that she always wants to retreat when people come back at her about stuff that she said. You know, she said things about, you know, with Cynthia, you know, said that Cynthia's relationship was fake and, you know, her engagement was fake, and people come back at it. Now she don't want to have to be reminded of what she said to folks. She just don't want to be reminded of that. And I just felt like, okay, well, you can't always do that. You can't always do that. And even with Kandi. Now, Kandi was another person, which, you know, I thought she made some really valid points last night. When it came to Porsha, when it came to Nene and stuff like that. I didn't like the fact that Kandi was making fun of the fact that Nene and Porsha wanted to make up. I didn't think that was cool. I didn't, because it's like, you know, so what? So what? So what? I don't like the fact that Kandi has a tendency to see the wrong in what everybody else is doing, except when it comes to Cynthia, Kenya, and of course her mama, right? Kandi will always point out everything that's going on with everybody else, right? Because she the bone collector. Remember, she done took over Sheree's spot as being messy and taking things back to people and shit like that. And then people like to call that real. It's not real. But I do find it interesting that Kandi seems to always be the one involved in the mess. And somehow she comes out unscathed. Like, well, I was just, you know, I just didn't want to hold on to shit like that. And I didn't like the fact that Kandi mocked them. I didn't like the fact that Kandi mocked Porsha and Nene in that moment, because I'm glad that they made up. Yeah, it's a little fake and they didn't say all kinds of shit to each other. But if they want to hang out and they want to do that, you know, big sister, little sister stuff, and we fight, but we make up, so what? So what? But I don't like the fact that Kandi always seems to always see the wrong in what Nene does and what Porsha does. Everybody does, but she don't want to see the wrong in how Kenya move, how Cynthia move, because Cynthia be moving kind of funny too. And of course, her mama of all people, right? Now let's get into this whole thing with Porsha and Eva. A whole thing with the baby. So as if you saw it last night, you saw that they was going back and forth. They was cussing and fussing at each other, right? And Porsha was upset with Eva because Eva said, well, your baby, PJ, looked like Dennis in a bow. But she said it as a read. At first, now when I first saw this on the blogs, because I didn't know it was a read. When I first saw it on blogs, I'm like, well, PJ do look like Dennis. She do look like Dennis in the bow. I didn't look at it as an insult, because I was like, well, lots of kids look like their daddies. They like spitting image of their daddies, right? But the fact that Eva admitted that it was a read, that was the issue. Now, that being said, I also have to kind of look at Porsha a little funny, because, okay, I do get why she's upset with Eva, because kids off limits. But maybe it was the context of it, right? Because if a person says, you know, PJ looked just like, she looked like Dennis with a bow on. Now, again, babies do look like their fathers. But again, that wasn't meant to be a compliment. That wasn't meant to be complimentary. Eva said it in a snipey, nasty way. And Porsha caught the shade and she fired on her ass last night. I was here for it. But then I have to look at Porsha and say, do you think that Dennis is unattractive? Is that why you got super upset about it? Because again, I understand the context in which Eva said it. She said it as a read, which is why her ass got fired on last night. And I understand all of that. That's perfectly fine. I get it. But think Porsha also came away looking a little funny on that because she got really, really mad that Eva said it. So do you think that Dennis is unattractive? Like, what was it that set you off about her saying that PJ looked like Dennis in the bowl? I've seen Porsha's baby pictures, and PJ actually looked like her mama when she was that age, believe it or not. But I can see why people could see Dennis in her. But is that so terrible? And I do understand, don't mistake it. I do understand how that can be taken when a person says, oh, that baby looked just like her daddy. You know, my granddaughter looked just like my son. Absolutely. And I see it. Everybody see it. But I don't take it as an insult. And I don't think her mama certainly don't take it as an insult. She wished that she looked like her. But I'm just saying, I felt like it was a dig only because Porsha might probably, honestly, deep down think that Dennis isn't attractive. And that's just my take on it. That's kind of how I was taking it. Now, I'm glad that Kenya got Eva told about how she been out here moving, because Eva, see, the problem with Eva, in my opinion, is that Eva say a lot of colorist shit. She say a lot of slick colorist shit. And I'm glad that Kenya called her on her bullshit, because she does do a lot of that. And I'm glad that Kenya got her told and explained to her about saying stuff like nappy head. You can't be out here saying that kind of bullshit when you sitting here with the privilege of having light eyes and light skin. You cannot sit here and act like you can sit here and say nappy headed to somebody and think that that's going to go over fine. It's not. And I'm glad that Kenya said that. That was important for her to say, and I'm glad she did that. But I'm still kind of stuck on the whole thing with Porsha. And I don't know if that's going to come out. I hope when she look back on it, she'll see that maybe she needs to think about why she got so upset. Because does she honestly think that Dennis is unattractive? That's just kind of interesting to me. I don't know what you guys called in that or what you thought about that, but I just thought like, that's kind of interesting. But anyway, that was the first part. That was part one of the reunion. I thought it was well done. Nene closed that little computer. She went and she came back. I thought that Nene had left the show altogether. She wasn't coming back, but she only went for a little minute. So I'm glad that they was able to get her back. But again, like I said, Nene don't stand on her shit. That's how she do. But I'm glad that she came back and she finished up at least part one of the reunion. And I can't wait to see next week's with when Tanya get at Kenya's ass. I can't wait, and Eva's ass. So that's it, y'all.